Thank you for joining us. This interview is a special edition for you only. We are going to take you for a few minutes and ask you a few questions about your past and how long you've been DJing and all that fun stuff. I have nothing written down, but I'm still curious, like, when did you start and like, where did you get your name from? And, why do you love DJing? That I just like want to hear that kind of from you.
All right. So I started DJing back in 1988.
Okay.
Um, I went to a 24K Posse house party at Lysandra's house,
Oh,
at my cousin Lysandra's house, and I think it was her birthday, and 24K Posse was DJing, and some DJs from One Too Many, and One Big Posse, 24K. And I was just, at the time, I think I was 14 years old, and I was just in awe, just watching these DJs go to work. And right away, I knew that that was my calling, and that's what I wanted to do. So I went home and I tore apart my dad's stereo system, and I started mixing with one turntable and one tape deck because I didn't have DJ equipment.
Yeah.
So I started DJing, trying to mix with a tape deck and a turntable, and my parents saw my passion for it, and they thought, and at the times the gangs were pretty intense in the late 80s, early 90s. So my parents bought me the cheapest DJ equipment you can imagine. I mean, there were these plastic turntables made by Technique, and I had a pyramid mixer. If you're a DJ from back in the day, you know pyramid. Um, so and that's what I started with. So 24K Posse was a party crew of just DJs. It wasn't like, they had members that just hung out and represented 24K Posse. If and I might be mistaken, but what I remember is that it was a crew of just badass DJs. And it was like, I don't know if you guys remember from back in the day, Moscow, you might, Kit Kat, Scratch Cat, like, those guys are the guys that took me under their wing. So when I tell you, like, I saw 24K Posse on the turntables for the first time and fell in love, like, I became friends with these guys, and these guys took me under their wing. I was good friends with Scratch Cat for many years, and I didn't have like 1,200 turntables because I was a young kid with no income, and my parents didn't have that much money. So I had the cheapest turntables you can think of, but they did the job. So many times I used to go do parties, like birthdays, and Scratch Cat used to tell me, "Hey, bro, you can borrow my equipment," and he would let me borrow his 1200s and his Newmark mixer. And to me, that was like, wow. I was 16, bro. It's
Yeah.
no income, no nothing, and 24K Posse kind of took me under their wing and taught me the way. That's what I started with back in 1988, and I started doing house parties. Uh, but not like flyer parties. I was doing birthday parties, for my friends from school, family members, like anything I could get my hands on, anything I can, show off what I had and, just go out there and DJ. I did it. And I did that for years. I'm going to say maybe for about 3 years, I was just out there, just, doing birthday parties. And because I was learning and I was getting the experience. And then from there I started meeting people, going to flyer parties, and I just started putting myself out there. And Jungle George from back in the day gave me my first shot at Monacos, and I was 16 at the time. um, and it's all history from there. I have a friend that I was going to, I had known since junior high, and he went through the journey with me from the very beginning. Um, he wasn't a DJ, he was an MC. His name is Roger, and he used to go by the name of Casanova. and he's the one that gave me my name, Shakespeare.
How would that work out with the vinyl records, man? Did you have like your wingman to help and carry your stuff around, or
Yeah,
was it you solo
yeah.
carrying all them crates, man?
Well, no. So at first, yeah, early on, like you don't really know, and you just want to take all your records, and then some experienced DJs were like, "Bro, you don't have to bring all your records. Just pick a certain amount of records for a set, and just bring that." And that's when I started noticing that people would carry like these little mini crates, like they were small and thin. Um, and I got me a couple of those, and I fill them up with only the records that I would use for that set.
Yeah.
But in the very beginning, it was like I'm carrying a big old crate full of records.
Yeah.
I'm not a big, so it was kind of tough at first, but I got the hang of it. I got some good guidance and from experienced DJs, and they helped me out. I would get an allowance from my parents, and like I said, I didn't have a car, I didn't have anything, and um, I would walk to Tower Records on Van Nuys Boulevard and Parthenia. I don't know if you guys know. I don't know if you remember where that Tower Records was,
Yes, I
Yeah.
but I used to walk from my house, dude. If I had more than $10 in my pocket, I would walk my ass to Tower Records and buy me a record. And so little by little, I started growing my collection of vinyl.
Do you remember any recollection of what was your first vinyl and anything like that, or what was the style, what genre, what did you?
Yeah, my first vinyl was freestyle, and the very first record I ever bought was a Stevie B record, Spring Love.
Just
Yeah, bro. So by nature, I love freestyle only because that was the very first genre I ever played. And then I also used to play. I don't know if you guys remember. It was kind of like an electric funk, like Cybertron, and I don't know if you guys remember those records or those artists. Megatron and Cybertron, and that kind of funk, and songs like "It's Time," like that kind of genre. I learned how to scratch on those records. Like I destroyed my vinyl, trying to learn how to scratch. Yes. So I started, like early on, I realized that in order for me to make a name for myself, like I have to put myself out there. And the only way to do it was, I thought, to throw my own parties and to make a crew and try to throw my own parties. And so I started a crew called New Style Productions. And that was back in 1990, like 1990, 1991. And it was all my cousins that were the same age as me.
Mhm.
And so I started New Style Productions. And then once I met Jungle George and I started seeing all these flyer parties, I saw the Valley Alliance. I don't know if you remember the Valley Alliance. So I went to a meeting for Valley Alliance, and I was 15 years old, bro, 14, 15 years old. And they were like, "Who's this little kid?" Right? 'Cause, Jungle George was like 18, 19, probably 20 at the time.
Yeah.
And so I just promised them that I would help them promote, and I would help, and I would go to their parties. And at 14 years old, what mom and dad wants to let their son go to a fucking party, underground house party or anything. So I would beg my mom, take me to the meetings, and the meetings would be at the McDonald's on Lancashire and Victory. It was a two-story McDonald's.
Tunnels. Yeah, I think yes, I know that one. Yes.
It's a two-story McDonald's. It's still there to this day, and it was a two-story McDonald's, and they would have their meetings there every Wednesday, the Valley Alliance. So I went to the meeting, and they kind of put me on probation, like we'll see how you do, and we'll see. But anyways, I would go to their party, I would go to their meetings. They put me on probation, and I went to every single one of their parties.
Mhm.
And then they told me, well, since you're coming to our meetings and you're coming to our parties, we got to give you a date because every month one crew has to throw a party.
Oh,
So yeah, they gave me a day, and that's that flyer with the Roger Rabbit, with the bunny rabbit, and the one I posted, that I shared with you guys on the MU Collective.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first flyer party. I was 16 years old. Begged my dad, please let me throw a party. Please let me throw a party. I'll make money. I promise. He didn't believe me. So at the end of the night, man, I mean, the Valley Alliance really supported me because I went to every one of their parties. And so at their meetings, they were like, dude, we got to go to New Styles party. You know, they come to all of ours. And they came, bro. And I had over 200 people in my backyard. I had go-go boxes. I borrowed the go-go boxes from Monacos. Andy, from Showbiz did the sound system for me and the lights and smog. I mean, I tried to go all out, and I charged $5 at the door. And dude, I ended up making over $1,000. And my dad was like, "When's the next one?" Yeah, because he saw the money, he saw the vibe, he liked it, and he was like, "Man, I had my mom in the garage, out of the garage, selling hot dogs and sodas.
Oh,
Like, dude, we worked it, bro, and it was a good night. It was a good night, and so I had New Style for a minute, and then did a couple parties, and then I left New Style because I wanted to grow. I was kind of stagnant, and I wanted to grow, so I I left um, New Style and started Men of Integrity. I don't know if you guys remember that.
mhm.
And it's on some of the parties it's on some of those flyers, Lalo, that Tony has, and you'll see it says Integrity. So, anyways, I started that, and I started pushing a little harder on the Shakespeare name, and like putting myself out there and stuff, and then um, Showbiz picked me up, bro. Like, not as they picked me up. They were like, "Hey, we want to promote you. We like your style, blah blah. We want to know if it's cool if we put you on all our parties." And I was like, "Yeah, bro, for sure." So they started promoting me. So, I also had a lot of family that lived in LA, and they would go to like the LA undergrounds. And so I started going to those LA undergrounds at a very young age, and the style was completely different from LA Underground to the Valley party scene. Like, the Valley party scene was more like a rebel style, um, party, like early on in the 90s. And so I would go to these LA parties, and they were like overalls and Mad Hatter hats, and I saw Mickey Mouse gloves, and I was like, dude, those Mickey Mouse gloves are insane. So dude, I started taking Mickey Mouse gloves to the parties here in
That was you? Yeah, I remember.
I was the first one. I was the first one to bring Mickey Mouse gloves and a Mad Hatter hat to the Valley in overalls with no shirt. Bro, I was like 110 pounds soaking wet in overalls with no shirt and a Mad Hatter hat and Mickey Mouse gloves, bro. And I'd be on top of speakers. Like, I would do my DJ set, and then after I was done with my set, I'd go on the dance floor and do my thing, bro. Very cool.
So you've done the DJing, the production, um,
Promoting.
promoting,
Promoting. Yeah.
stay very active. What are your plans from now on and the future?
So my plan for the future is getting to the big show, man. Like, I want to play on the big stage. That's every DJ's dream. And so I want to play on those Insomniac events. Nocturnal, EDC, Beyond Wonderland, Escape, like wherever I can get in. Um, like, that's the dream. But in order to get into those positions, on those stages, I have to have my own music. I have to have my own sound. I can't be playing other people's music. It has to be my own.
Yeah.
So I'm getting there. That's the ultimate goal, is to play an entire set of just my own tracks.
What you want?
Oh man, Jesus, that's a tough one. So it have to be. Wow, I have so many favorites, Lalo. Like, that's a really tough question.
Okay. Okay.
I love Above and Beyond, so one of them would be probably an Above and Beyond track. Like, if I wanted to go hard, probably be like if I wanted to go a little harder than that, some Bart Skills. I don't know if you guys heard of Bart Skills. He's a techno DJ on the Drum Code label. I don't know, man. It's so many out there. That's a tough one. But for sure, gotta pray Spring Love for me, man. Because that's my number one. TV straight up, bro.
Oh yeah.
That's what started it all for me, man. So that's a favorite for me.
You can give me 10 probably.
Uh-huh. So, so when it comes to being a DJ and having the skills as a real DJ, um, Carl Cox by far is my favorite. I mean, that guy is
Oh
just
yeah, oh
insane.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh
absolutely.
yes, oh yeah, yeah. Carl Cox is my favorite. One of my favorite DJs. Yes, And then I love trance, so I'm a big Above and Beyond fan too. Like I love Above and Beyond.
Um,
Yeah, like absolutely, absolutely. Like I'm gonna tell you something, bro. Like I'm into the house scene, like I'm into the electronic scene now, and I've always been into that electronic music. Like I love hip hop. Don't get me wrong. Like I would go DJ house and techno, and in my car I listen to hip hop. So I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea here that I don't like a certain genre, but I love them all. But electronic is where my heart is. And I feel like every DJ promoter um, from the early 90s, the late 80s to the early 90s, we were the pioneers that brought the scene to the San Fernando Valley. Because before it was high energy disc, like in the early 80s or in like the mid 80s, it was like high energy disco and it was hip hop and, there was no house, there was no electronic. And we brought that sound to the San Fernando Valley. So a huge shout out to all the DJs, all the promoters from the early 90s, like late 80s, early 90s. We brought this scene into the San Fernando Valley, and we created something that wasn't there, you know, and that goes for you too, Presto, Moscow, it was, Joe Matrix,
Yeah.
Jungle George, like Andy and Art from Showbiz. I mean, all these crews like the Outsiders and Matrix and Showbiz and the Winos,
Inner city.
like Inner City. Wow, how can I forget them? Like Inner City and like FX Empire and like all these big names that were the Valley, back then. We're all pioneers, and a lot of people don't see that, because they don't really know the history because we really haven't created a history book.